her 90th birthday in March, and of course we don't have my father anymore, but certainly his lessons to us have remained. And so during the early '60s, we had a fellow who came to Merced County from Texas, a West Texas liberal, they used to call him, Bill Stockard, who became the county superintendent of schools, and at that same time, they had just opened up Merced College in 1962. So he went to my mother and a bunch of senoras who were farm workers, and my dad, and people. He went to farm workers. But you know how it is with Latinos, the women are the ones that do, and the men, we don't do as much. So he got them enrolled in the local community college. And my father took a couple of classes, but he and the other men said, I don't think so, this is for us. But my mother and this group of senoras, they stayed in it, and they ultimately earned their certificates in early childhood development. And that was about the time that Head Start was starting. So they started one of the very first chapters in the country of Head Start. And they were already in their 40s. Some of the ladies in their 30s, some of the ladies in their 40s. These had been ladies who had been, always had been very bright women. They just had never had an opportunity to be educated. And so when they started that Head Start program, people would come from all over the country to see it, because it ultimately became one of the models upon which other programs were built. And then they would go to Washington, D.C. as advocates and advocate in front of the Congress, taking advantage of all these senoras with their bags and stuff. But early on then, my brothers and my sisters, we saw that that education was really, really powerful. And I used to tell them, I know there are a number of educators here, and you're my brothers and sisters. I used to say to people when I used to talk, I said, you know, education is so important. And I wish I would have said, you know, you think education, you know, you think, was it something is expensive, education is expensive, try poverty or whatever, ignorance. I wish I'd have said that, because what we realized was that that for the people, the Latinos that we saw that were getting out, they were the educated folks. And so the thing that I always told parents, especially as I talked to them, and by the way, Pique, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Parent Institute for Quality Education, fabulous program, wonderful program, and we should have it in all the schools. Because it empowers, I'm not talking about the Great Valley Center yet, but I will. But empowers parents to literally serve as advocates on behalf of their children with the school districts, even when they don't speak English. And my mother and some of the senoras were like that. They would go into the school, and then they'd come back, and once they got the right story, they'd come home and hit us and beat us because, you know, we had been bad at school. But at least they felt comfortable in going to school. But to see your mother and your father, when you're like 8th graders, 9th graders, 7th graders, 6th graders, to see your mothers and fathers at the kitchen table doing their homework at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, because they're taking community college classes, knowing that the next morning at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, they were going to get up, they were going to get dressed, and they were going to go to work. And if they had class the next day, they would come home, they would shower, they would make food, they would feed us, and then they would go to school. To see that is so powerful, was so powerful to me, my brothers and my sisters and my friends. There was never any doubt in my mind and the minds of my brothers and sisters that education was going to be where we would go. And I used to tell people, I said, well, why did you become a teacher? Well, mostly I became a teacher because some of the most fabulous people in the world that I ever knew, some of the people that I wanted to hug all the time were my teachers. But I used to tell them, well, when I was a kid, the only people I knew who had gone to college were doctors or teachers. And when you went to the doctor, you were always sick, so that didn't feel particularly good. And when I went to school and they hugged me and everything else, it felt good, so I decided to become a teacher. But I have never felt bad about ultimately becoming a teacher, because people tell me, you're going to get rich. I say, well, I'm not rich now, so that's not a big deal. But you know, the career that I had and my ability to literally stay in Merced County and to do the sorts of things that I was able to do in education, and then ultimately have the opportunity to go to the community college that my mother and father had attended, that I attended, that my brothers and sisters had attended. It was kind of like a higher level welcome back Cotter. I was able to literally go back and become the president of the college that I had attended as a kid. And it gave me an opportunity to walk paths that I would never ever have walked, to meet individuals that I would never have met. And it also gave me the opportunity to literally sit down one-on-one with students and assist them. So after 41 years of being in education, I thought it's time for me to do something else. So I'm getting to the Great Valley Center now. Oh, by the way, how long do you want me to? I could go like forever. What time do you usually let people out? Okay, because I can. But anyway, so I was telling Bob and folks over there that about 2 years before I retired, I said, you know, when I retire, I don't want to not do anything, and I really would like to work for a nonprofit, and something like the Great Valley Center would be really, really good. And so it turns out the timing was just perfect for me. I was doing some consulting after I retired, and that's still fun, but and then teaching at Stanislaus State in their doctoral program. But this was something that I really wanted to do. So the board of directors appointed me president in December, and during that time, and so the Great Valley Center was going through this transition. It had been this huge program that Carol Whiteside, our founder, had developed and established with some wonderful money from some large foundations. And then after a period of time, when the dollars from the foundations went away, the Great Valley Center aligned itself with the University of California and became part of the University of California. It's an opportunity for a new university to kind of buy, or not buy, but have a kind of a built-in think tank. And so for about 10 years that was the case, but what also happened was that the board of directors of the Great Valley Center decided, you know, a lot of the things that we used to do in terms of brokering research and doing those sorts of things, the universities are doing now, and maybe we need to do some other things. And so they decided about 8 or 9 months ago to separate from the University of California. So they worked it all out, and we were able to separate out. And so at the same time, they had done some strategic planning, and they looked at themselves and they said, can we truly be the Great Valley Center that we used to be, which was to serve anything from the Oregon border down to Bakersfield? Well, of course, the answer to most of the folks in the room was, yeah, probably not, because the capacity to do those sorts of things just isn't there anymore. So what we have decided, what the board of directors have decided at the Great Valley Center is to, as we rebuild ourselves and we start to get ourselves out in the community, what we want to make sure happens is that we do what we do and we do it right. And so we have decided to concentrate primarily on Merced County, Stanislaus County, and San Joaquin County. That doesn't mean that we won't bleed into the other counties if programs and things come up, but that's going to be our primary emphasis. And so, but we do have two programs that actually do bleed not only into the neighboring counties but other counties around it. Let me just chat with you a little bit about those two programs. You met Desiree Holland just a second ago. She's the program manager of our program that we're very proud of called California Connects. And it's a program that's funded through the California Community College Foundation. They set aside dollars to partners around the state of California to provide connectivity, training and connectivity to online, to the internet, for primarily Hispanic, Spanish-speaking individuals, but also in some communities where there aren't a lot of Spanish speakers, English speakers who don't have access. So what we've all heard, and maybe you haven't, but if you haven't heard about the digital divide that exists between the poor and everyone else, what we know is that in a lot of homes, the ability to connect to the internet, to the world electronically doesn't exist. It doesn't exist sometimes because they don't have computers, but it also doesn't exist because some of those people just don't know how to go about accessing it. The youngsters might because they're going to school, but the adults don't. What we also know is that government programs, social security, I have to do that, and social security, you go online. You go fill out a W-4 form, you go online, you pull all those forms down now. So for a large population, They don't have that ability to do so. They don't have that training to do so. So Desiree and her legion of people